Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Mad Scientist Roundtable. I'm your host, Chris Cogswell, joined by my wonderful co-host, Marie Mayhew. How's it going, Marie?
Happy Halloween!
Man, we have been getting a lot of use out of our evil laughs recently.
Oh my god, I you know what? I gotta rein it back in. People are looking at me funny on Bart.
It's bad news. This episode, we're going to be talking about our memories of Halloween, our favorite ideas, and some of the cool and a little bit scary myths and legends around Halloween, specifically in America. So we hope you're ready for that one. It's going to be a pretty fun episode. So this episode it's going to come before our special episode with Dave Flora from Blurry Photos, which was a lot of fun. We just recorded that one yesterday. I think it went pretty well.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
He's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
He is hilarious. Yeah, they're both those guys on Blurry Photos are hilarious. Both of the Daves are amazing. And we're going to be talking about, on that episode, our fears, our top fears that we all have around this holiday season.
Deepest fears. Oh,
it did get kind of dark at the end. It was a little weird.
It was a little, yeah. Well, whatever. Fine. Keeping it light. It's
going to be great. And we're also going to be, so we have the History of Halloween episode, we have this episode, we have the special with Blurry Photos, and then we were actually also part of a spooky story collaboration with a bunch of other great podcasters that should be coming out really soon as well. We'll be posting it here on our channel for you all to enjoy and listen to. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's super great. So we hope you're having a good Halloween weekend so far, and let's get into the show.
Oh.
We're getting there.
Oh, so slowly. Okay, so Dr. Cogswell, what is your favorite memory of Halloween? You're like sort of my my poster child for the guy who absolutely loves this holiday the most.
Oh man, that's a lot of pressure, Marie.
That is a lot of pressure. But you're also the guy with the giant orange pumpkin shirt.
That's very true. I do have a giant pumpkin shirt.
I don't think you falsely wear the mantle.
Katie told her parents that I was going to be a giant pumpkin for Halloween, and they completely believed her. And like her grandma texted her and was like, "Can I see Chris in his pumpkin costume?"
Oh my god.
And it's like, I'm not really. So funny.
And you're like, damn it, Katie.
Damn it, your family already thinks I'm strange enough with all my occult books and alien pictures and crap. Anyways, so Halloween for me is it's always been my favorite holiday ever since I was a kid. I've always liked it more than Christmas. Like, Christmas is great. It's a lot of fun. Definitely always better than Easter. Easter's kind of the last holiday in the calendar for me.
Mm-hmm.
Even as a kid.
Meh.
Yeah, I mean, Easter was like, especially in a big Italian household, Easter's like, you go to church. I mean, we went to church every weekend, so it wasn't that big of a difference for us, but it was like, you went to church and it was kind of like extra long, and it was always hot in church because the churches we went to were like these old, they spoke in Latin or Italian, and it was like, oh man. And then on top of that, you ate like kind of gross food, like you'd eat like lamb and stuff. Oh, it wasn't great.
Yeah. Paul's mom, or I should say his stepmom, is Italian, and we would go back for Easter to Connecticut, where they lived for like the Easter meal and or for the Easter brunch. And I swear to God, I don't know. I'm making a general, huge, sweeping generalization here, but like, it was like 17 courses, and it opened with like pasta, and then we'd have ham, and then we'd have like, the antipasto, and then we'd have a salad, and then we'd have pasta, and then for dessert there was like ricotta pie. Like, do you know what I mean?
Ricotta pie. Yeah, that's
what she would call it. She's like, what? Her name was Ray, and she's, she was, it is just a very warm, and again, just very, very wants you to eat, and it was almost very stereotypical, but it was really true. She'd be like, "What? Marie? You're not gonna have any ricotta? You gotta have some ricotta." And I'd be like, "Are you kidding?" Like, on the drive back into New York, we literally had to stop at the bathroom like 5 times because my stomach. It's like, my body didn't know what to do with like these.
Right, it was panicking.
Yeah, it was like this huge influx of all this different crazy ass food, like scallops, and it's like, how many different things can I eat? That's going to questionably be digested, and then you end with a little regat.
You're right. You eat a pie made of thick cheese.
Yes,
delicious. Yeah, our house. It was like
I got the sweats just thinking about that.
I know. Our house. It's like you start with like deviled eggs, and then this like.
Oh God, yes.
It's deviled eggs and pasta. Usually you have some kind of like something al forno, so like a baked pasta, like lasagna or baked ziti or whatever. And then it's like you have that. You have the antipasta, which is like sausage and cheese and bread and focaccia and all this other stuff. And then it's like, then you get to the actual meal itself, and it's like someone made lamb. We'd have rabbit. We'd have, meatballs and it's bad.
Yes.
Yeah. And then like I look at myself today and I'm like, how did I get so fat? And it's like, it's amazing I haven't been fat my entire life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what I was doing as a kid. I must have just been vibrating constantly. Cause like, seriously, it was like in my family, it was like if you didn't eat, people were like, "What are you dying? Like why aren't you throwing up right now? like you should after a meal." There's what's that comedian says? He's like, "I don't eat until I'm full. I eat until I hate myself." I think it's Louis C.K.
Yeah.
Right? It's completely true. That is completely the mindset my family has. Anyways, okay, we're talking about Easter. This isn't even a damn Easter holiday episode, Marie.
It's not.
This is Halloween.
But I'll tell you what, that's something that scares me right there is the memory of the Easter meal and just being like, there's nothing else, there can't be anything else in the kitchen, and lo and behold, out would come.
No, there's more. There's always more.
Bum, bum, bum. What?
So
macaroni salad. Okay, keep going.
So for me, Halloween was a weird holiday for me too, because it was a holiday that we didn't do Halloween with the rest of our family, right? Mm-hmm. Like Halloween was like the one holiday we celebrated at our own house, and like I had my friends with me and everything. So for me as a kid, it was like a really special holiday. Not that I didn't love hanging out with my cousins and my aunts and uncles and everything, but it's like, it's different being able to go and do something fun and have like a day where you're dressed up and you're being weird and you're out in the neighborhood with your friends. Mm-hmm. Like that didn't happen. I think we celebrated Christmas at my actual house once. And it was like other times we went to my uncle's house, and that was great and a lot of fun. But you're not at your own house. It's not like, if I got like a PlayStation, I had to set it up on my uncle's TV. It's just different.
Yeah.
Anyways. So Halloween, for me as a kid, Halloween was actually, it kind of morphed over time, because when I started as a kid, Halloween was, you'd get dressed up and we'd go we went all out, with our costumes and stuff. Like my mom actually, it's funny, she sent me a picture the other day on her cell phone that she was going through our basement, which just has loads of stuff, random crap from throughout my lifetime. And she found a mask that she had made for me to be Gambit one year from the X-Men.
Wow.
Right? And she was like, oh, I thought this was just like a piece of trash t-shirt or something. And then she's like, but I looked at it, it's got this hole in it. She was like, I can't figure out what it is. And I was like, oh, it's from when I was Gambit. Like, look, it fits on your head. So anyways, good times. So
your mom still is like, now what is a Gambit?
Yeah, my mom was like, oh yeah, right. When you were the Gambit. That makes perfect sense.
The Gambit, yeah. Oh my God, that's so awesome.
Yeah, ridiculous. So actually, I remember that year too. I was Gambit, and then that was like the year, I think we were like maybe 10 years old, so a lot of my other friends, like a lot of our friends were like getting to be at that age where they were like too old for like normal trick-or-treating Halloween. This was like, that was probably the last year that we trick-or-treated fully.
Yeah.
Like unironically.
Yes.
Right? And then when we were like 15, we were like, oh, let's go trick-or-treating. But like in my head, I was like, I can't fucking wait to go trick-or-treating. Right? But yeah, I remember one of my friends dressed up as Kid Rock that year.
Oh my God.
And it was like looking back at it now, that's so strange.
It's so frightening. It's a little scary. That's a scary costume.
That's almost the scariest costume we could have picked. Anyways, so yeah, when I was a kid, Halloween was like the traditional trick-or-treating, all that stuff. As I started getting older, though, so on top of that too, let me just reset the scene here. My family even though we all didn't go to get together, we went all out on Halloween. So, and when I say we didn't get together, I mean like the day of. Usually we were at our house. Like you'd come home from school, get in your costume, or you'd go to school in your costume. You'd come home and you would just, go out and trick or treating and do whatever. But like the whole month leading up to it, like my family, we decorated our house pretty intensely. My uncle and aunt in Jersey, they decorated their house like it was a freaking Halloween superstore. It was amazing, right? Like that's some of my favorite memories. My Aunt Janice, my Aunt Janice has like a whole storage locker that's dedicated to just her holiday stuff.
Oh my god.
She'll decorate for even the small like the most random holiday, right? Like she's got like on President's Day, her house was decorated for it.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
Yeah. Like it's ridiculous, and I love it. I love it so much. I fully know that my love of decorations and holidays and stuff came from my Aunt Janice. Like that's undoubtedly where it formed for me. But yeah, like so they would have a huge Halloween party every year, and like their house was full of eyeball candies and like zombie wall painting and everything. It was great. But then over time, as I got older in New York City, Halloween was there was kind of the earlier day before sundown where kids would just kind of go out and like trick or treat and have fun and everything. But then the minute that it started getting dark, like I'd say like 4:30, 5 o'clock, Halloween would devolve into a night of shaving cream and eggs and toilet paper and
Dude,
throwing pumpkins everywhere. Well, like
roving hoods.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you. You know what? That's all I ever wanted to hear as a 15-year-old. That some adult would be like, "What a punk!"
You punk.
Yeah, like we like on. I don't even know if it's still this way. I haven't been home. Like I haven't been to Staten Island for a Halloween in a long time, right? Like I was in college and now Boston and whatever. But yeah, like the streets were covered in shaving cream.
Oh my God.
Eggs were everywhere, broken eggs. Like it smelled like shaving cream. You could probably have lit the air on fire from the noxious fumes. It was amazing. It was so cool. And like the thing was too, kids like it sometimes it was like pretty normal. Like it was just kind of like for good fun. But then some neighborhoods it became like a chance for the kids to go on a full-on vendetta against like neighbors they didn't like, right? So I remember great kills. So I lived in a part of Staten Island called Eltingville, and like the parts of Staten Island I grew up in are like the rich, like there's kind of a gradient actually as you get more southern, as you go more closer to New Jersey in Staten Island, like more and more south through the borough, it gets more and more rich and like it gets to be more and more rich, more and more like. Old Italian and Irish families that live in mansions and are like, I can't believe this mayor's thinking to tax our soda pop. I can't be served. It's a nanny state, I tell you. Meanwhile, their relatives died fighting Mussolini.
Right.
Like a real fucking nanny state. Anyways, so they, but Great Kills was kind of like the barrier between the rough parts of Staten Island and like the nice parts of Staten Island, or not the nice parts necessarily, but I guess like there were neighborhoods where if you went there and you were driving a car, your car was going to get covered in shaving cream and like your paint was fucking destroyed. Like you couldn't drive that night.
This is like The Purge.
Yeah, it really was. It really was like The Purge.
And there's our now known as Dr. Cogswell running around being like, ah!
Yeah, me with shaving cream and eggs. I remember my dad. My dad didn't know that I went out and did that stuff on Halloween, right?
Oh, yes.
And like, because my parents got divorced, and so we had this really fucked up, like week on week off thing that doesn't work for kids, and don't do it, parents. But like, so I spent a week at my dad's and a week at my mom's, pretty much. And if Halloween was when I was at my dad's, I would skateboard over to my mom's house in that neighborhood because that's where I had all my friends. Right. And then one Halloween.
The fact that you had a skateboard too. Kind of want to hear more about the skateboard, but okay. Keep going.
I was so bad at it, Marie. But so I had that. So then so then I remember I came back, like I went out with like a backpack full of shaving cream and eggs and toilet paper and whatever. And then we like, whatever, it was, fun and nuts and whatever. In our neighborhood, it was much more safe, I would say, than other neighborhoods. Like no one's house ever got egged or shaving creamed.
Right.
It was more like the adults were like, okay, they're going to do it. Just do it on the street. Have fun. Don't get on anyone's car. If it gets on someone's car, clean it up right away. You know what I mean? Like,
we're gonna be standing in the driveway, drinking our beer and smoking a menthol.
Yeah, pretty much, right? It pretty much was kind of that way in our neighborhood. So,
oh my God.
but in Great Kills where my dad lived, it was like fucking anarchy. I remember one year there was what was it, like it was bologna, I think.
Oh yeah,
bologna. Yeah, bologna. There was a rumor that went around that if you put bologna on someone's car, it would ruin the paint.
Oh
right?
God.
And so kids like in school were like, I got some fucking bologna for tonight.
Yeah, I got some Oscar Mayer.
Yeah.
Sold out at all the convenience shops. Yep.
Yeah, it was ridiculous, right? So,
is that true?
Actually, I looked it up actually.
Yeah.
This says this is from Snopes, the message boards on Snopes.com. It says soda, peanut butter, bologna, any food item that uses phosphoric acid as a preservative will peel the paint off a car.
Huh. Oh, I'm glad we're eating
So, not all versions of these foods contain the acid, but there are versions that do. And actually, this person says, as a bored kid growing up in Queens and on Long Island, we used to throw golf balls covered in peanut butter at cars from an overpass.
Jesus.
Good God.
You guys are like, this, like, that's... What I love is, too, is that you're looking it up to validate your Halloween hijinks of bologna. And your validation not only comes, but it's like an additional story with peanut butter.
Yeah,
and golf balls from your same neck of the woods. It was probably someone you knew.
It might have been. I mean, it's a big city, but yeah, maybe. Anyways, so I remember I came home, and my dad was like, "Why do you smell like shaving cream or whatever?" My dad was a total hard ass at that point, and I was like, I just remember being like, "It's Halloween, like you can't not smell like shaving cream." You know what I mean? Like, I got hit with shaving cream. Like, what do you want me to say?
You're not the boss of me, old man. No.
And then from that point forward, I always made sure to be at my mom's house for Halloween.
Ah.
Yeah. But so it was a lot of fun though. Halloween was a good holiday. Looking at it now as an adult, I'm sure the adults in New York hate it. Like, absolutely hate it.
Oh my God, yeah.
And the thing is too, there's no rhyme or reason for it either. It's not like we were in the Halloween episode, we talked about mischief nights where historically it was like, if a neighbor doesn't give out candy or isn't celebrating Halloween, you hit their house up with TP and eggs and whatever, right?
Yeah.
That there was no reason for it, as far as I could tell. It was just random destruction, You
just got the chance. You had this sort of anonymity, right?
Yeah. Well, that's definitely a part of it too. You had
permission and you had anonymity, and you were it was like the one night that everything is flipped, right? You are expected to go out after dark. You're expected to run in the street. You're expected to take candy from stranger. It's this total inversion of anything else during the course of the year.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know. I think the only other holiday that used to come close to it, in terms of that in New York at least, was New Year. Not New Year's. Was the 4th of July.
Oh my God! Yeah. Well,
because in New York at least it's illegal to have fireworks.
Oh God, yeah.
But nobody cares. So it was like 4th of July, you would try to see whose block could get the most cops on it. You know what I mean? It was like I don't know what the law enforcement was doing at that point, but it was like no one cared. It was okay. Yeah, fireworks are illegal in New York. Okay, who cares? They're not illegal in Pennsylvania and Connecticut, and you know what I mean?
And
like
3 blocks away, pretty much.
30-minute
drive, and you got
there's not a giant
weapon grade
magical
explosives.
Yeah. And so actually now what they do on 4th of July is they actually put there are cops that'll wait at across the border, where you can just because you cross the border into Pennsylvania and it's like fireworks, because they know, you know what I mean? Like they totally know, and And so, it's like if you have a New York plate and you go into one of those lots and then you come back to New York, they'll stop you on the highway, and they'll be like, "Oh, you were speeding, whatever." They'll pull you over for any small infraction, and then they'll find the fireworks and you get a giant fine.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Anyways, they haven't banned shaving cream yet. Those damn nanny states.
Damn nanny states. Them and the baloney.
Them and their baloney. Yeah. How about you, Marie? I'm assuming less anarchic than my Halloween.
Yeah, go figure.
Go figure.
Go figure. Well, so I grew up in Colorado, and like, come October 31st, there's an excellent chance it was going to be really cold, or there was going to be snow. So I feel like, like half the time, or more than half the time, you couldn't even tell what your costume was, because you would go out, and before you could even get out the door, they'd be piling coats on you, and hats, and mittens, and scarves. And then you'd be so damn cold that you'd be like, trick or treat, and then you'd be like, we've got to get back inside, it's too cold. But now like as a kid, it's kind of the same way. I don't think I had the same what is it, that same jejune enthusiasm for mayhem and destruction as you did, but like so my Halloween definitely wasn't as madcap adventure as yours. I think like I was saying, we would be bundled up, we would be freezing. I would say like the times that, like when I was younger, sometimes we would even be visiting my grandparents, so I would, there's something sort of depressing about like if you are at some place besides your home, like you were saying, like this is the holiday you had that you were sort of at your home, and it was your home base, and you knew your neighborhood so well that you could go out in the dark and all this stuff. And it's like, I remember being like in Pittsburgh for it, and I was very young, and I would only get to go like, I'd get all dressed up because I was either like a leopard or a witch. It was my two big ones. Yeah, those were my go-tos, Okay. And I remember my mom like even sewed like the little leopard costume with the ears. It was super cute. I wore that for like years and years and years. I know, it was super cute. But you would go to you'd kind of go up and down a couple blocks, and that was, you'd be like, all right, we're gonna go, and it's sort of like in grandparents' neighborhood, so you'd get a lot of pennies and apples and boxes of raisins and shit like that, right? And it's sort of like, so it was still okay, and then you'd come back, but like, you get, especially when you get older too, you definitely go from, like I was saying, it's like this very exciting kind of like you're still a kid, and you're out in the dark, and you're running around, and you're getting candy, and there is something like totally inverse that makes no sense about it, that it goes against everything else that was put before you that year as rules of growing up. So that's fun. But then, like, I don't know, I mean, maybe it's like, I don't know if they still do that now, but in Boulder, Colorado, where I grew up, they would shut down we had like sort of this big walking mall downtown called the Pearl Street Mall, where it was just sort of a thoroughfare where you would go, and there was a lot of shops, a lot of like restaurants, yada yada yada. But like every Halloween, every drunken person would just converge on that, right? And they would be like, we're gonna have this, the associations would be like, we need to stop this because it's like rioting and looting. And like, Boulder, God love you, Boulder, Colorado, but you're the whitest town on the face of the planet. And it was like somebody would set fire to a trash can, and boom, it was like, we can't have this.
Anarchy in the streets.
Oh! Clutching our pearls. Meanwhile, there's Chris, dropping.
Lighting fires to trash cans on the everyday, just for warmth. Just in the urban jungle that I grew up in. Yeah. But
it was very like, I can remember it being like, oh my God, at Pearl Street. So, you got to be like more of a teenager, and you do stuff like that. But it's like, I think it was pretty fun. Now I think of it, and it's like, I go out, since I have a younger kid, go out and we go trick-or-treating, and you do the costumes, and you still dress up in the costumes. And there's something really fun about it. And it's like, I feel like even as a parent, like you get, if you go to certain neighborhoods, adults are still crazy for this holiday. And they'll like shut down entire blocks kind of where we live now. And it's, they put up the sawhorses, and they don't let cars in. They don't have any kind of like, there's no licensing or permitting for any of this, but like the whole block becomes the haunted house, or the whole block has the theme, and everybody's trying to, and they go through upwards of like something crazy like 50 bags of candy or something crazy, something like that. And it's like, it is just like this huge event, which is, I think that's kind of cool. And it's kind of fun to see that still. Cause it's like, I feel like there was a certain, I don't know if it's like, again, me looking back and being like, oh, back in my day, we were a lot crazier. But I feel like, I don't know, maybe it was just the times we grew up, but there was a lot less, I don't want to say supervision, but there was a lot less concern about, maybe not, I don't know if that's the same, if I'm romanticizing it, but definitely feels like now, I don't know if I would just let my kid just take off into the night, with a pillowcase and a prayer and be like, see you when I see you, kid. It's like, I don't know if that was, and I feel like there was a lot more latitude towards that, and a lot more, like, again, that's the community was going to take care of their own type of thing, which just is not necessarily. It's not necessarily how I would view it now.
Well, you know what's really interesting actually for me is like you were saying all that in all that stuff about like inversion of moral norms and things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of, I mean, I think that's a traditional part of the Halloween mythos, right? Is this subversion of moral norms. But like for me as a kid, like I don't know, I feel like I didn't have a normal childhood. So it's like a bad example, I suppose. But like I remember I really liked Halloween because it was kind of like when I was a kid I used to sneak out all the time at night. Right?
Ooh,
just like go walking outside at nighttime. I loved it, right? And like, so like there's a lot of like, I'd say by the time I was like 12, my parents were like, you'll be okay. Like my mom tried a lot harder, I would say. It's like, like my dad had very specific, strict rules. Like, I don't know why, but like there was something being a kid. Like I remember being a kid as being really scary all the time. You know what I mean? Like like there's something really scary to being a kid that it's kind of like, I think Stranger Things really shows it really well. And I don't know if it's still a part of being a kid now. Like, I mean, I'm sure it is, like being online and stuff like that shit's scary. You know what I mean? I mean, you could be some stupid kid that uploads a YouTube video of you singing and suddenly you're like getting death threats and whatever, right? Bags of worms sent to your house or whatever.
And like, that shit never goes away. Yeah.
No, and now it's even worse because it's permanent damage, right? It'll never go away.
Yes.
When I remember Halloween as being like the night where people stopped pretending that things were like, I liked Halloween because it was a time where people were allowed to be outwardly afraid of stuff.
Yes.
And outwardly like seeing the, like, but the thing is too, it did feel like a big party, a big community of people in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so it was like, it's a period of time for you to be afraid, but in a safe way, right? It's kind of like a way to get rid of your dread, anxiety, I guess, in a nice, non-constructive way, but in a nice way.
Well, I think, that's true. Cause I think like kids in general, like you said, like I don't think there's anything said like a normal childhood, right? I think that's almost more of the myth that even puts even more anxiety on people. It's like,
oh, sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like you're right. You have all this sort of angst and anxiety as a kid, just from growing up and just from being like, you're entering teenagers and you've got hormones and it's like neurotoxins in your system and it's crazy and you don't know what to do. And like, you're right. Like this one night you kind of have the ability to have something, to have it all sort of make more sense or be safer in a way. Yeah. Or at least be fun, right?
Yeah. It could be a fun thing, I guess. And it was a great time. I loved Halloween. Halloween is like probably some of my favorite memories as a kid, But there are a lot of specifically American fears and myths and things around Halloween, right?
Oh yeah.
So, and I mean, and I think that's a part of the episode that we just did that I didn't really get to point out so hard was because we come from a long line of other holidays. Which, by the way, quick before I forget, in that episode I said that the Irish festival of Halloween was known as Samhain. It's actually pronounced Samhain. We've gotten about 20 emails from very great listeners. Thank you so much for shooting out those emails and, keeping us honest here at the Mad Scientist Podcast. We appreciate them very much.
Yes.
I actually, as soon as I got the first email, I was like, crap. Yeah, I was like, I feel like I knew that, and I just didn't even think about it. Stupid mistake. But anyway, so Samhain.
Yes.
Samhain, Marie.
Samhain.
So our Halloween traditions come from Samhain, come from the Aztec Day of the Dead ritual that became the Day of the Dead that is currently celebrated in Latin America, especially Mexico. And then we have this idea of the Roman holidays of, All Hallows Tide, All Hallow Eve, all that kind of stuff historically mixed in. But America has I think America has done a lot for the terror genre generally, right? Like,
yes,
for some reason, even though we have like serial killing, right? Serial killing seems to be one of our chief exports in America. Like, there are bad serial killers in other countries, and in fact, I think that the reason why it seems that America is so above the curve there is because a lot of the horrors that we consider here to be serial murder or outside the norm of what normal society should be are in other places crimes that are usually unreported, right? Like, seriously, like child trafficking, like in some other countries, child trafficking, it's like, yeah, that's what fucking happens. You know what I mean? Like, we're destitute. We live on less than a penny a day. We're going to sell our kids if we have to. I know it's dark, but it's true. But it's absolutely true, right? So, anyways, okay, not to get off too far off here. It is a Halloween episode, Marie. It's going to get dark. To not get too far off the map here, like I think every neighborhood had the story of the local, like, creep, like the pedophile, or the guy that you thought was like, that guy's definitely collecting heads in his basement, right?
I think, yeah, well, kind of, I think I agree with you. I agree. I think, yes, I agree with you. And I think that what really helped fortify this, not so much was the idea of the serial killer, because that, I think, contributed to it, but was the advent of the American slasher film.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
And the quintessential American slasher film. I mean, you can have favorites, and I think you can have, this is debatable, but that's Halloween. That's Jamie Lee.
Yeah, it
right?
is. Yeah.
And I think to me that is like, that cemented so much, again, like about this fear of the unknown and this idea of like kind of the urban legend coming to life and created an entire genre that is self-propagating to this day.
Yeah, well,
that's American. Like, that to me is there's other countries that do fabulous horror and terrifying movies and films, but nothing quite like the slasher film.
No, definitely not. And the thing is too, in other, again, like, I think Hollywood plays a huge role in how Halloween has been shaped, right? Like, the idea even of getting, like, I can go to the mall right now and buy a slasher movie quality mask for like $30.
It's
right?
Good stuff. And you know what the mask from Halloween was, right? You know who that was.
I do know, but tell the listeners, Marie.
So, and this is what cracks me up, is because this is really the cheapest thing they could have done, was they took a mask of what was supposed to be Captain Kirk and turned it inside out.
You know what's funny?
Or painted it white, right?
Since I read that, I cannot not see that face. Like, whenever I watch Halloween, I'm like, that looks so much like fucking Captain Kirk.
You expect him to be like, Spock, damn it.
Yeah. I'm here to kill you. Yeah, like, it's just, like, you can't unsee it, you know?
How are we supposed to communicate with the aliens if we can't even talk to one another? I love him.
So good.
Man. I love him. And to me that was, but it's like, that was so ingenious to come up with something. Like, I mean, I haven't read very much else about that particular film, but I can only imagine, like, the prop guy, they went through several rounds of like, well, what's scary?
Yeah.
What would be a scary thing? and I can only imagine that they had all sorts of terrifying masks, but this mask of just this white, expressionless, it's barely a face. It's got this uncanny read that's barely recognizing as a face with sort of this weird hair is just really good. And probably cheap. It was probably the last thing they came up with.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They'd be like, fuck it, we're out of budget. You're using this.
Right. You have to wonder if the guy was just like joking with his friends. He was like, we should just use a stupid mask turned inside out. Ha 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 ha. Yeah. That's all good fun. And then his friend went to like the director and was like, I have a fucking great idea. Like, don't tell Billy. Don't tell Billy. But I came up with this idea for sure on my own, and we definitely weren't smoking pot behind the craft table. I promise we
definitely weren't using up all of our money, all of our budget on drugs.
Right, on drugs, and then we had to buy this shitty, cheap mask.
Well, it was Carpenter, too. That's the thing, John Carpenter, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, it is...
genius.
It is... I do think that, like, the horror movie and the horror genre itself, especially in terms of modern day stuff, has came a lot from Hollywood. But then we also have, though, very traditional American folk tales that are pretty scary still to this day, right? Like, so The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is one that immediately comes to mind when you're thinking of Halloween, at least for me.
Yes. And I think that's, and again, like, just coming straight out of it being an American story written by an American author, right? Washington Irving. And it was like, I want to say, talking about sort of colonial countryside and what is this, the legend that comes up. And it's with, of course, the Headless Horseman who has the jack-o'-lantern, right, for the head.
Yeah.
Which is just, that is just, it's still creepy. And it's like, it lasts pretty well. I have like I said, my daughter loves that story.
It's a great story.
And she like retells it to me like at around Christmas time still. She'll just whip that thing out whenever she can. And she's like, this is so good. And as you can tell, it's like so spooky and scary.
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, it's so good. I love that story so much. And I love too how, like, the story itself is of this, again, it's of a coward, right? It's of a man who is cowardly. And it speaks to kind of that unseen danger just around the corner. That's always, like, one feeling I always got, and I don't know if this is just from me or if this is true even for people that live in Europe today, but, like, Europe feels very civilized, right? I've never been, and I don't mean that in the sense of like, whatever, pinkies out, powdered wigs and etc. Right? I mean literally like every part of Europe that I've ever been to, and I haven't, to be fair, I have not been to that many, but it's always seemed to me like because of how long the history has been, and because of how civilized in the sense of like civilization existing there, it has been for so long, that you kind of lose, like, the fear, the things that are scary in European lore are like the ghost story, let's say, which are these stories of, like, it's always been a story, I suppose, of it's like nature. I guess what I'm trying to say, I'm kind of bungling this completely horribly.
No. I think I know what you're saying. I know what you're on about.
What I'm trying to say is, in America, there's still so much unexplored region. There's still so much unknown in America.
It's the unknown, yes.
That there's still a little bit of truth, a little bit of edge to these stories of there's something out there that we don't know about, right? That's why I think Bigfoot, why UFO stories, why skinwalkers, why all of these mythologies, regardless if they're true or not, I think that's why they take such strong hold in America, but don't necessarily gain such a footing in European countries. Because again, in Europe, it's kind of like, like when I lived in New York, the idea of a UFO existing out there seemed so out of, or even Bigfoot seemed so out of the realm of possibility to me, because the biggest forest I had ever seen was Great Kills Park, which was like 3 miles by 3 miles. If that, right? And full of trails and water fountains and stuff and lights. Like, it was scary.
And benches.
Yeah, like it was scary because of the crackheads. It wasn't scary because of the unknown,
Oh, yeah.
But like,
and I think,
yeah, but like even New Hampshire, like going up there, you could find forests that went on for untold miles, you know, and there were still bears, and like that's it's. And so in America, I feel like there's a little bit of, again, there's always that edge of the unknown still out there.
Yeah.
You know? And then on top of that, we have serial killers and all that, and it just builds. Continue, sorry.
No. I think with Europe is about, like you said, it's about sort of the civilized, the civilized, and the horror comes from the intrusion into that, right?
Yes.
So it's like Dracula is the bloodsucker intruding into the natural world.
100%, yeah.
Or it's about sort of the intrusion of the new technology, which Frankenstein, right? Like we're stepping beyond. We are so good at what we are doing. We are so controlled, and we're stepping too far, right? So again, it's all about sort of civilization and control. But like America, you're right. America is, you come over, you settle, and you could come back, after going out to get supplies and find, Roanoke or Crow, whatever, find whatever. What was carved on the tree?
Yeah, it was
Krakatoa. No, what is it?
It wasn't Krakatoa.
Krakatoa. It wasn't Krakatoa. That's not right.
It was.
I was so good up until that point.
I believe it. Wasn't it Roanoke?
Ooh. Roanoke was the settlement. Virginia Dare was the firstborn. And they carved something on that tree. Oh, everyone out there screaming it at us, and we just can't hear it. So anyways, so it's like that, and it's like everyone's gone. So it's sort of like, but what happened? There's just zero idea, and it's the great unknown. And I think what movie really did this really well? Blair Witch Project.
Yes.
Hit this perfectly was 100%. The idea that there was somewhere in America, like again, you should be able to walk over any crest of any hill and be able to see a 7-Eleven. Right in the back of your mind, that's what it is, and something that is unknown, that is in the forest, that is going to, kind of wipe out your being, is still out there. I think it was really good. Yeah. And I think that's so uniquely American, and that's one of the things that is especially good about Halloween too, because you're going out in the dark, and it's, you're trying to face that kind of scary fear.
Right, totally. So the word is Croatoan.
Ah!
You were super close.
Oh, so close.
Yeah.
So close.
I'm surprised at how close
Krakatoa
was.
I don't even know exactly what Krakatoa is.
Isn't Krakatoa a volcano?
Krakatoa is a volcano, but then the Kraken is a giant sea beast.
And we've come full circle, ladies and gentlemen.
Boom.
So one also kind of funny thing that I think started happening in maybe the 80s and 90s, right? We talk about the Satanic Panic, right? We did that episode on the Satanic Panic. And on top of that too, we had this we had a fear that came across America of people poisoning candy. Right on Halloween, giving out apples with razor blades and all kinds of stuff, right? And I remember that too. Like I remember a year where my dad made us go through our candy.
Oh, we always had to. Always had to.
It seems so nuts to me. It's like, we only went trick-or-treating in our fucking neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like, Bill down the block is trying to kill everyone's kids. Like, it's not a crime you can get away with.
If Mr. McGunster is actually, poisoning candy, I think we have a bigger problem.
Yeah, that's not the first crime you commit, right? Like, why is this person living in polite society? Like,
exactly. Why is he in our cul-de-sac?
Right. Yeah, we're going from petty criminal probably to like full blown fucking Batman
mass
villain.
Murderer.
Yeah,
yes,
it's ridiculous. Actually,
you
know what you just reminded me of, Marie, actually?
Huh. What?
I remember...
Oh, God.
When I was a kid, I remember
a neighborhood poisoner.
Oh, so we're gonna get into the poison candy thing, I promise, listeners. But this reminded me of a story, or it reminded me of a bunch of stories from when I was a kid. Again, where I grew up at my mom's house was very, the trees that you would see were like in front of someone's house on like, I'm not even kidding, like a 2-foot by 2-foot plot of grass. Right? Like, they put the trees in as, like, a secondary thought where they were like, oh, we need oxygen. Like, we can't get it all from Jersey because there's chemical plants along the waterway. We have to get some air here naturally somehow.
Ah, Jersey.
Yeah, and so, but my dad's house where we lived was on this like weird cul-de-sac within a cul-de-sac kind of thing, and behind someone's house there was a like almost an alley, I want to say almost, but it went to a like a little graveyard.
Oh, dude.
And then past that graveyard, or I thought it was a little graveyard when I was a kid, at least. I'm sure it isn't. I'm sure it's just someone's fucking backyard that all the kids in the neighborhood were just like breaking into and walking through. And then behind it, though, was a giant, like, when I was a kid, it seemed giant, but I'm sure, again, it's like I'm pretty sure you could hear cars from every point inside of these woods. Oh, yeah. But as a kid, it seemed like a expanse of unbroken forest.
If you tell me there was a pet cemetery,
no.
We're ending the fucking episode.
No. It's, sometimes dead is better. Yeah. So the
Stephen King.
So there was a way through these woods that you could get to another little cul-de-sac neighborhood. That again, when I was a kid, it seemed like you walked across the fucking earth. You know what I mean? Like you like even though it was literally on the other side of a big Pathmark shopping mall, or like it was on the other side of a shopping mall, but you made it through the woods, and the kids on that side of the woods were playing with Transformers when you were playing with Voltron on your side, and you were like, oh, these strange people with their strange ways, where have we come from? You know what I mean? Like, it seemed like a whole new universe.
We have tunneled through the earth.
We've come to a scary and savage world. And so like in these woods, whatever, I remember kids would tell stories like, I saw a UFO in that woods. Like I saw a park or whatever. And then there was a rumor that within the woods, there was like a BMX bike trail kind of thing. Or whatever that like older kids had made. But again, I actually drove by these woods the other day. I'm not the other day, but like whatever, as an adult, I'm not even kidding, Marie. They are the smallest woods I've ever, like, there's like 30 trees.
I know, but like as a kid, this is so much more immense. The world is so much more.
Yeah, it
like,
seems so much bigger.
Dangerous and immense and mysterious.
Oh my goodness.
That's like, I think that's a huge part of it. And I love the fact that you had a cul-de-sac within a cul-de-sac.
It was so
and
strange.
All like, then you're like kind of, navigating around in the dark, all ninja-like, crawling through people's backyards.
It was so weird. Marie. So anyways,
somebody's looking out the window and they'll be like, it's the Cogswell boy again. No, it wasn't the cat. No, it's not the cat. It's just the Cogswell boy. Should I get the...
Hey, listen, if my neighbors weren't concerned by my neighbors were not concerned at all by my actions, okay? Like, no, they didn't even seem to notice that anything was weird going on, whatever. Hilarious. So this idea of poison in the candy, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
This actually comes from a little bit of a place of truth, Marie.
This does come from a place of truth.
Which is kind of scary.
Well, I think, again, like any good urban legend or myth, it comes from, like, there's a grain of truth in it. And you don't know what came first, right? Was it the actual event that came first? Or was it the fact that it was this urban legend that incited or gave license to somebody to try and use it as to more nefarious means, right? So I have actual anecdotes of the occurrence of a myth like this.
No, yeah, me too. I have a couple. So,
I'll let you go first. What's your first one?
Okay.
What year is your first one?
My first one is from 1964.
Oh, I have 1959.
Oh my goodness, Marie.
Snap. It might be the same one.
Maybe.
So, Dr. William Shine?
No, it's not mine.
Okay. Dr. William Shine, California dentist, handed out 450 laxatives to unsuspecting trick-or-treaters in the Halloween of 1959. Well, it seemed no laxatives are far from deadly, right? Not a deadly prank. There were 30 kids that were, had very clear colons, and only one that was reportedly hospitalized. No one knows why this was done, but that was definitely one of the first episodes on record, and I'm getting this from a website called HalloweenLove.com.
So,
which is legit.
This reminds me of another story from when I was a kid, Marie.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
My grandma.
And you know what? Here's the thing. Let's just back it up because it's like I said the word laxative somewhere in here, and I think that opened another door in the Cogswell Memory Palace.
It did.
Oh, God.
It did. It is the laxatives, Marie. It is the laxatives. So my grandma used to like hoard stuff. I mean, she used to hoard a fuckload of stuff, right?
I don't like how this story's adding up.
And so
we have hoarding and laxatives and Halloween.
All right. And so so it wasn't on Halloween. We were in the car with her, and she was like, "Oh, do you kids want some chocolate?" And she gave us chocolate, and it was like laxative chocolate, and we didn't realize. And I ate it, and I went home, and I pooped my brains out. And then my mom one day, like not far afterwards, was like, "Don't take any chocolate from Nona because she's been giving out laxative chocolate." And I was like, "Oh, I know, Dora, I know, my body knows."
Here's what's so funny is that your mom, you have to warn against grandma.
Oh my God, all the time.
Taking candy from grandma.
All the time. My grandma didn't like, she learned English when she came here, but she like never really got, she was very, fluent in English, whatever, but there were still words that she like didn't know. And so what she would do is she would write those words on little Post-it notes and then put them around her apartment. And so laxative, I'm sure, was one of those words that she didn't know. But there's actually there's an even better one. When we were cleaning out, we had to clean her out apartment all the fucking time because again she was a goddamn hoarder. We had to clean out her apartment, and on the fridge she had written in as one word she had written the words turkey clutter. I don't know. I think I have no idea what turkey clutter meant.
No.
Right? But I can only think what I can only imagine she meant was like clucking, like turkey clucking. Maybe.
Turkey clutter.
But that's me meeting her more than halfway. I mean,
you're giving Nona some license on that one.
That's me helping her out a lot. Really bad.
Oh my God, I love this woman.
Turkey clutter.
Turkey clutter.
I
love her just passing out like laxative chocolates to you kids.
She doesn't even know what it is. She just knows the word chocolate. She's like, these are fine.
I'm sure these are good. They've been working. She doesn't care for them too much. They make her poop. They should work out fine for the kids.
Make her poop. Okay. All right. Here's my.
What's your next one?
Here's my earliest one. This actually comes right from Snopes.
Okay.
So this one is. So this is the odd case of Helen Fail, a Greenlaw, New York housewife who was arrested in 1964 for handing out arsenic-laced ant poison buttons as part of a self-evident Halloween joke. Annoyed that many of the trick-or-treaters were too old to be asking for free candy, she made up packages of inedible treats to give to the teenagers. The packages contained dog biscuits, steel wool pads, and the ant buttons, which were clearly marked poison and labeled with a skull and crossbones. She also took the precaution of telling the teenagers that the packages were a joke when she handed them out, and there is no record of anyone's being harmed by her actions. Even so, the potential for harm was there, so she was charged. She pled guilty to endangering children and eventually received a suspended sentence. Now, what I like about that one is she still spent money on getting stuff. Like, she went out of her way, right? Just give the teenagers a shitty candy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just give them toothpaste.
Well, I'll tell you what. Just give them pennies. And those sesame candies, right? Those sesame seed candies, and some raisins.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe a whole apple. I mean,
Maybe a whole
don't
apple.
Don't give them poison, because you know what? That's problematic right there.
It's problematic.
That's not good. That's not good.
All right. So what's your next one? If you have a next one.
Oh yeah, no, 1974.
Oh,
the most notorious.
Okay.
The most notorious case involving an 8-year-old boy from Texas who passed away after consuming a pixie stick laced with cyanide. Parents were grief-stricken. The father, who had taken the son out with a few of his friends trick-or-treating the night before, helped the police find the house where the pixie stick was given out. But it only took a few days for investigators to locate the true culprit, the boy's father. Now, before Halloween, the man had taken out a life insurance policy on his children, and he had boasted to his co-workers that his financial situation was about ready to take a turn for the better.
Fucking idiot. What an idiot.
The man Ronald O'Brien was convicted and sentenced to death after merely an hour-long jury deliberation.
Oh, man.
And was executed 10 years later in 1984. You know, fucking hell. So this is a case of like the urban legend, you know, the urban legend causing, you know, being the seed for somebody to do something. But it's like even in the 70s, you know, the cops, they're pretty good with this stuff, and I'm sure like they're like, you know what, who's the first person that you look at when there's a death in the family?
It's always the parents. Or it's always the closest family. Right? It's
or
always the family.
You know, if a wife, like we're watching a TV show or we see something and the wife is murdered, I'll just turn around to Paul and I'll look at him. I'm like, it's always the spouse. Yeah. It's always
you look at Paul with daggers in your eyes. Like,
I know. I'm like, it's always the husband, and he's all like, wait, what? I didn't do
anything. Yeah.
Where Paul's just sitting there trying to work the remote, trying to get the batteries changed in the remote or something. I'm like, it's the spouse. God love him. So he was executed for that. So,
wow.
But these cases cause panic, right, throughout the 80s, fearful of it. Like these children, they're going to become victims. But there is no recorded deaths from poison candy from a stranger.
No, there's the one. I think there's the one case of the parent, right? Yes. I think that might be the only case.
Yes.
Like Halloween candy being used in that way. There have been a couple scares where people, like, there was one case in New Jersey in an 88 where they believe that they found strychnine poison in some, like, whatever fruit snacks or whatever, and then when they retested it, it was just cornstarch. And so, you know, it's not strychnine. It just kind of looks like I wonder how that lab messed that up. You know what I mean? They're like, it's strychnine, and then it's like, oh, it's cornstarch. Oh, crap. You know, like, cornstarch is a ginormous. It's so different. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, doesn't make any
strychnine.
Doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So the other thing that actually this reminded me of, though, was there were a lot of scares when I was a kid of, at least in New York, especially like right after 9/11. There was a scare that mail would have anthrax in it. And in New York, it was like, I don't know if this actually happened or not, but I feel like when I was a kid, at least, I remember there being rumors that, like, oh, you know, like, whatever, Timmy's parents found anthrax and they died, you know, or like whatever. And like when you were a kid, you didn't know what anthrax was. You just thought like you breathed it in and you died.
Right.
Know?
Well, it's anthrax.
Or even I remember, I distinctly remember this. I had a friend who was terrified that airplane exhaust, again, like the air trails, the water trails. She was
chemtrails.
Shut up, Marie. She was terrified that those were spreading anthrax, or that they could use them to spread anthrax, right? And you know,
creative solution.
Well, and the thing is, in New York, they actually were spraying at that time for West Nile virus. So there were nights where, like, in the paper, they were like, "You're gonna smell something weird. Don't go outside."
Oh, yeah, because that always helps.
Yeah,
that always helps.
Ridiculous,
right?
That
always helps the people. Well, in 1982, as well, a little bit before your time, but Chicago, 1982, the Tylenol murders.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that I think caused, like, that's a terrifying random, you know, like a terrorist attack kind of thing in America caused by an American that was just completely, you know, unforeseen. And I think that sort of helps. That helps move it, you know, that helps kind of keep that portion alive.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I would say that the other part of it is like, well, what about like sharp things? So you got poison, kind of, you know, there's nobody poisoning candy, but what about sharp objects? Did you find anything on sharp objects?
I didn't know. That was another one where it was like, I think there were some cases of, like, I didn't even look at, to be honest, for sharp objects. Did you? Did you find any?
Well,
what did you find?
So they were saying since about 1959, there's been 80 reports of sharp objects in food.
Wow. Okay.
But they've been hoaxes. But really, when the stories have turned out to be true, the sharp object was placed there in the food by a friend or relative as a prank.
What a prank.
Which is really, really smart.
Hilarious.
Which is a
I
really
love,
great prank,
funny. I'm always ripping my friends' esophaguses open from the inside as pranks. They're always like, oh, so funny, Chris, and then they die.
Good stuff.
It's a good one.
The first organized attempt for a sharp object in a Halloween treat that's recorded was in 2000. James Joseph Smith, Minneapolis, allegedly stuck needles in the Snickers bars he handed out to trick-or-treaters. Several of the children bit into the bars, but he didn't have, it didn't, because they were needles, it sounds like there was only one injury.
Okay.
But he was charged with, tampering with a substance with intent to harm death or illness.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, I think there was that one thing. And again, this is all from HalloweenLove.com.
There have been cases where, like, there are people who will put poisoned treats out for dogs, right? Or like even they'll put
bastards, yeah,
or they'll put. I mean, I've seen even on Reddit a couple times. I've seen people where they're like, oh my god, like look at this, someone left this out on a trail for, on a dog walking trail, and it's like a dog tree with like a razor blade in it or something. And who knows if that's true or it's just people on Reddit trying to get karma points or whatever. But one part of this that actually the sharp objects part at least, the reason why I find that one so fascinating is because it is linked to a. So again, just to be clear, listeners, there have been no reported cases of this from what I'm hearing, Marie. No real besides that one.
Let me see.
Which was in 2000.
Which is pretty well. I mean, so I think there has been more of a cause for razor blades and or sharp objects, and it's more studied.
Okay.
But there's no rash epidemic. There's been no actual
right.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So the reason why I find that part of it actually fascinating, and this is the part that I did research up to for this part, is it oh god, the listeners are getting a sense of how the sausage is made here on the Mad Scientist podcast. It's rough times. So the
trick or treat, people.
Trick or treat, people. You're getting a trick. No, you're getting it. So picarism is a paraphilia where the idea or the act of stabbing someone with a thin, sharp object is considered sexual. So you get a sexual thrill from you say wackadoos?
Wackadoos, yeah.
So you get
I just channeled my Nana.
Nice. So there are cases of this actually occurring not that long ago in New York City. There was a case, and even in Boston too, actually, from when I was living there was a case of a person getting onto the subway and stabbing women in the butt with pins.
Ugh,
right? And there's also, of course, the most famous picarist of all time, Albert Fish, the werewolf of Wisteria, a very famous American serial killer who, when they found him, when they put him in jail and they x-rayed him, he had something like 100 various clothespins in his groin. He liked pain. He liked the feeling of this happening to him. And so that to me actually put an edge of truth to that story of the pins and things in candy, because there are people with that, of course though there are people that like enjoy there are mental proclivities that cause someone, for instance, to poison a loved one or something, right? And kind of get off on the idea of you taking care of them, right? Similar like Munchausen syndrome or Munchausen by proxy, but there's really no, there's nothing like picarism. It's so weird and spooky.
No,
it's
and
like
I think
legitimately
again,
scary.
Yeah, and it is almost like a virus or something. Like this comes out and it, you see, I was reading like in 1967, like the focus of this this urban myth goes from poison to the sharp objects, and it gets such momentum behind it that it can even cause state legislators to be passed.
Well,
yeah. So I was saying,
if there's one thing politicians love, it's passing laws that do nothing for nobody.
Outrage was so strong in New Jersey that state legislature passed a law shortly before Halloween in 1968 mandating prison terms for those caught booby-trapping apples.
I mean, yeah, no shit, you should go to... I mean, what?
I know. But, to me, it's like that... They didn't really... And, and again, in kind of going through and researching it, there is no clean-cut, case that's on the books that I could find that is sort of... that shows this. A lot of them came back to be hoaxes, or somebody else, again, trying to poison someone else, or just something along those lines. So to me, it's just like, it's so weird, because it's like, yeah, my parents still cut up stuff. Paul, when we come home from going out with little girl, he'll open up the candy and go through it. And it's sort of like, again, like, you don't even know that you're doing it until you're doing it.
So I think there is something to be said for like checking candy, and in particular, like, and not the sense of like opening up every Reese's cup and whatever and cutting into them and stuff. Right? That seems a little excessive. But like, I remember when I was a kid, usually my mom was like, whatever, don't worry about it. But there were even candies that like I wouldn't eat because I was like, this seems sketchy, right? And so in particular, I remember, and it's so unfortunate though, because I'm sure this stuff I'm sure it was amazing, right? We had in my neighborhood a lot of families that were like immigrants, obviously, right? It's New York City. We had a lot of immigrants. And so there were a couple houses I remember where the families were like straight from China, right? Like they straight from China. Like they had kids that were like in my classes or like my school or whatever that I knew, but the parents themselves had come over from China at some point in the past. Right? And so I distinctly remember there was one house that gave out Halloween candy that was like, it was like they were like handmade cakes and stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure the grandma and the mom worked their butts off. Like I'm sure the whole I don't know who did it. It was always the mom or the grandma handing them out. So I'm just like assuming that that's who did it, but who knows? It could have been the kids. It could have been maybe they bought them at Pathmark. I have no fucking idea, right? But so I always felt bad not eating that stuff because I was like, oh, like I'm sure they worked so hard at this, but it's not packaged, right? Like, right. It's not safe. It's not safe, right?
Right. But if you would like to go over to their house, sit down,
I totally would.
Do homework with with your buddy, and they'd come in and you'd be like, hey, how about a piece of it? You'd be like, hell yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You better believe I do.
Snarf, yes.
Yeah. But so like, and I remember though too, it wasn't just like cakes and stuff. I remember there were other houses that would give out like candy with, I remember there was one house that always gave out Korean candy. And it was always like, it wasn't sweet. It was like savory. And so, it wasn't even like it was wrapped up, whatever, but you just wouldn't eat it because you were like,
what the hell is this? Yeah.
But it was such a cool, like, oh man. Like, I wish I could go back and get that stuff. Now I go out on purpose and try to find, like, candy from other countries and stuff.
Yes, but now, but when you're a kid and it's like, again, your repertoire and your palate's pretty limited to the crap chocolate, right? Right, like, you're going to get your Twix bars, you're going to get your Reese's Pieces, right? You're hoping for the full size of that crap. But so, and it's like, and it's brightly wrapped, and if you get something that's a little different, you're like, no.
Yeah.
Trying to feed it to your younger brother or something. Be like, here, try this. I'll trade you. And it's just like, I think that's, again, that's sort of human nature, even within the holidays. If it's different than what is the norm, you immediately are like, which is so strange because it's a holiday where all the norms are supposed to be broken, but really at the end of the night, you're going back for the Mars bar,
Right. So there's one other little quick thing we wanted to touch on, which is the really interesting aspect of this holiday, and also kind of a lot of the holidays we celebrate, where they have links to pagan customs. But in particular, every holiday seems to have its, besides Christmas in an interesting way. I guess in the sense of, if you are a Christian, Christmas does have its similar day, which would be Good Friday, I guess, the day that Jesus was was buried.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But
and that was the day he pushed. Yep.
Right. And so, but Halloween is, like we were kind of saying, it has links to these ideas of holidays, of death, of, you know, of
the harvest,
of kind of the
ending.
end of the season, the end of the year, right? And on the other hand, we have another holiday, Easter, that celebrates the beginning of life. Kind of like, you know, if Halloween is the holiday of death, Easter is the holiday of life.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's why we have things like rabbits and eggs and stuff.
Yeah.
Because they're all linked to fertility, right?
Which is, I think, totally interesting. And again, you wear special clothes just for that day.
Yeah, we're actually working on an episode on ceremonial magic clothing, because it does. Yeah, it has, like in Halloween we see it with mumming, with souling, right? With you dressing up as something evil. On Easter, you wear your best clothing. You you know, you dress up in pastels and little hats and whatever. I guess. I don't know. And you know, and
you're getting a little hat this Easter, buddy. Like Easter bonnet, right? With all of the like heavily or flowers and all the stuff on it. Yeah.
Right, totally. But one aspect that's kind of interesting that Marie and I were talking about a little bit. Marie, you had brought this up initially to me, and I had never noticed how strange it was that we have, so Halloween traditionally would be the holiday where you celebrate the harvest as well.
Yes.
And you celebrate the bounty of nature on top of it being kind of the end of the year.
Yes.
Right? The end of the harvest season and the coming of this next period of kind of desolation is a little bit of a strong word for it.
Well,
but,
winter.
Winter. Yeah, a time of I guess, not again, suffering is a little strong. What's the word I'm looking for here, Marie?
Well, austerity. It's much more austerity.
Absolutely. A time of saving and a time of being prepared and having to live off of what you've already gotten. Right?
Yep.
But in America, we celebrate Halloween, and then a couple of weeks later, we have Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Right? Which is really weird.
Yes.
Actually, if you think about it in terms of, like, we've almost split up our harvest holiday from our death holiday. Right?
Yes, I think that's very true. And you can't have the two things. I think, especially in America, it's too hard to socialize those two things together and have them feel good. And the thing I think is also really crazy and interesting about that is you have the same, again, so the end of the harvest, the last vegetation that you're going to be bringing in are like gourds and root vegetables and the pumpkin. So you have Halloween where you're carving the pumpkin from the lore and myth. And then the biggest dessert in Thanksgiving, or one of the biggest, that is almost sort of, it's canon, is pumpkin pie.
Sure.
Which is this weird continuation of that one symbol throughout this holiday. Throughout both holidays.
It's a weird, like, it almost makes me think that, you know what it kind of reminds me of actually is it reminds me a lot of the Chinese month of ghosts.
Yes.
Right? That you have at the beginning of the season, you have a holiday where the gates of hell are opened, and so you're actively performing ceremonies and things to kind of humor and honor the dead, right? To keep bad spirits from you. And then at the end of that period, you have another holiday, another feast kind of day, where you celebrate the reclosing of hell and the beginning of a new period, right?
Yes.
Kind of reminds me of that too. We almost do in America have a beginning to this month of harvest, right? And then an end, and then a very end where we're actively utilizing what we've had to have a big feast and thank nature and I mean, what's really interesting is what we today think of as Thanksgiving is built upon all kinds of myths as well. Maybe we should do a full Thanksgiving episode, honestly.
Oh, we're totally doing it.
It's, but there's a really good book out there on the history of Thanksgiving. It's not just the history of Thanksgiving. It's actually the history of the Plymouth colony, and just their building and the Indian Wars, King Philip's War in particular, that occurred, and it's called Mayflower, and it came out not that long ago. I want to say maybe 2 to 4 years ago. It came out somewhere in that time span. But that book is fascinating. It's really, really great. I highly suggest it for you, listeners. But basically, what it talks about is how the very first Thanksgiving that was actually celebrated was again like not the view that we have of like a period where we're giving thanks to the native peoples that lived here for helping us and stuff, right? Like the first thing that settlers did when they got here was they disturbed a burial mound and stole some corn. That was like on the first day.
Smooth.
You know what I mean? That was the first day, and they were like, "They'll forgive us." Yeah, they were like, "They'll forgive us. It'll be fine." And the thing is that the chief of the time, who lived in the Plymouth area, did forgive them
naturally,
and then they ended up shitting on him anyways. Right?
We're so good with that.
Because we're so good with that. We're like super good with that. But anyways, so the original day of Thanksgiving actually was like a day of like somber prayer and abstinence. Because it was a Puritan day, right? Like you like didn't eat, you didn't do anything. You just like prayed all day and gave thanks to God. And we've like completely subverted that, right? Thanksgiving is a day for getting really fat and eating so much that you fall asleep.
And football.
Hell yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Of like ritualized violence. Like ridiculous.
But I do think that there's something weird about like you have the carved jack-o'-lantern, which is the representation of Halloween
it's super,
and not evil per se, but like sort of all of that, and you're going to take that and you're going to cook it into something sweet.
Right. You eat this
You're going to distill all the evil right out of it, and you're going to put a little Cool Whip on top.
Well, it's almost again like I can foresee in 1,000 years, like let's say, okay, after
when you and I are just brains in boxes.
Well, I was gonna say after the inevitable nuclear war.
Yes.
And aliens are sifting through the ashes of our past civilizations, and they find, they come to find out that we had this holiday where we seem to worship a spirit in the form of a jack-o'-lantern, and then a few months later we eat the spirit's innards as part of a ceremonial pie, right? It's gonna take on such weird significance of like, we're worshiping and then killing our god, like it's like I can totally foresee that happening and being really interesting and cool. Yeah.
And they're gonna be like, they're like, who were these jackasses, man?
Who were these people?
God.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, anyways, listeners, we hope you've had a good Halloween. We hope that you are having a good time listening. We hope you're gonna have a good year.
Absolutely. We hope you have more treats and tricks, my friends.
Yes, this is really the official start of our second year on the air as a show. Really, I mean, the first episodes we did of this show were lacking in quality, let's say.
Oh my God.
And they've gotten better. And so I like to think that our very first episode was our first episode in my mind was on Halloween last year. Right? And it's just kept going from there. So I thought it'd be kind of funny or kind of cool too to talk about some topics we're thinking of covering in the coming year.
Yes.
To give you guys a little bit of a taste.
I think that sounds good.
So we're, like we said, the ritualized or magical clothing. That's going to be a really cool episode, I think.
That's going to be good.
We're looking at doing an episode on the consciousness or communicative abilities of trees and plants.
Oh, snap.
From a really sweet book that was given to us by one of our patrons, Robert, which is going to be amazing. It's going to be really, really good. We're looking at doing more episodes on alien abductions. In particular, I'm hoping to do an episode on some relatively recent but relatively famous abduction cases, including one that is in a book by Kathleen Marden called The Alien Abduction Files, which I'm currently reading my way through. So I'm thinking we may try to cover that case a little bit in its entirety because it has a lot of really interesting facets to it.
We're gonna get crazy, people. It's gonna get spooky. Goodness up spooky. In here.
And we're also thinking of doing an episode. We're gonna do an episode on chemtrails.
Oh, hells yeah.
We're gonna do an episode on the military.
We're gonna see if we can get through the episode on chemtrails without Chris just fucking losing his shit.
We're gonna try.
I'm putting my money down on no. I'm so
We're
excited.
gonna
It's
see.
gonna be
I'm
so
gonna
good.
stream. We're also gonna do an episode on the military-industrial complex and all of the myths surrounding that kind of idea.
So fun little light ditties like the military industrial complex.
Yeah, we're
I
fun.
love that.
And then we're also gonna do some episodes on GMOs.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I want to do one on the idea of MK Ultra,
My absolute favorite.
which is gonna be really good.
Favorite.
And then whatever you listeners think might be interesting.
Please,
If
let
you
us
have
know.
if you have cool topics that you want to hear us cover.
Oh!
Kelleher had a phenomenal idea today, actually, on the Astonishing Legends, on the Astonishing Legends Facebook group. Mm-hmm. So shout out to that, guys.
Mm-hmm. Are we stealing this? Is this something that we shouldn't be using?
No, we're not stealing it. Let's take it. He asked me about it.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna do one. We're gonna do one on. We're gonna do one on the scientific potential explanations for telling the future. Of kind of getting into the I guess what's the word I'm looking for, Marie?
Divination?
I guess divination maybe is a good one.
Is it the more science-based, or is it more like, being able to...
More science-based for sure. Like kind of going into the idea of like, how can one tell the future in dreams?
Divination.
So
somewhat divination, yeah.
Phenomenal. Anyways, so if you have other cool ideas for episodes, please let us know, dear listeners. And
Dear listeners.